try and brawl it out against each other. And what I'd imagine to see here, we've seen it before from Michael Checo himself. That hell is absolutely scary, and I would not be surprised in the slightest if Strictly Business opted to take it away.
The question is what does Michael Checo play in the Hunter role? Because from what I understand, he is completely out there with his picks. Have we seen Hells? As well as he has got a Scotty, and Scotty is available right now, and we're seeing Scotty get through the banning stages, which is ludicrous. After seeing last week's performance, it's the same patch that Gauntlet was on. It's the same patch that Console's on right now. This
is 2 North American teams, though, as opposed to a North American versus a European team. And because of that aspect, I feel as though Scotty, well, yeah, there it is. The immediate ban away. One or the other was going to take that completely off the table, and I mean, it's kind of expected it would be the second pick team doing it.
Scotty, Cabrak, and Susano are like the 3 that should be banned every ban phase, and then there's one flexible ban, which is that hell for me. But I do like the fact that Strictly Business realized that because they are first pick, by not banning one of those 3 that I just mentioned, it does mean that they can get one of them as first pick if Elevate don't ban it.
That's just the strategy factor coming through as well. And Elevate, both excellent bans made by them. You don't want to permit the Susano to go through. You don't want to allow for that Scotty to have any opportunity. But you have to let something go through, like you mentioned, Hindu, and it's going to be the Zeus.
Yeah, they're going to select the Zeus in the mid lane, which I'm not really too surprised at. You don't necessarily want to give Baronic that Zeus. We've seen how strong he can be, but it does mean that you leave that Cabrakan open for Elevate to then get a window and take for themselves. So that combo of Bellona, Cabrakan, very, very strong in the early stages and throughout the game.
And I actually love this draft composition already on the side of Elevate, because not only do they have that front line presence in case they need to get in the face of Zeus, but those are just 2 gods that are excellent at locking him down. It's going to be incredibly difficult, and they're certainly going to have to watch their positioning on this mid lane Zeus.
But I love the response from Strictly Business going for Sylvanas and a Wheelix here. The combination from those 2, ult and ult together, you can have the Wrath of Terror that brings straight into the Gravity Surge, which allows a Wheelix just to pull them all the way back, is great setup potential. Not only that, Sylvanas and Zeus combo, beautiful as well.
Certainly a very solid early game presence already on the side of Strictly Business, and with the Vulcan being locked away from Elevate, what would you like to see in response as far as the next couple of picks are concerned for Elevate to try and deal with this early game composition?
So with the early game comp that Strictly Business have right now, I think Elevate really needs to look at some lane pressure a little bit more. They've got the Cabrakan, which is pretty solid as well, with Vulcan in mid. Something in the duo lane like a Medusa would be pretty strong here for themselves to get some pressure there. But if Cabrakan goes into the jungle here, they do still need a support as well. Fafnir, maybe? We don't see too much of that on the console just lately.
Well, great call on the Medusa pick, and that's immediately going to be locked away for the side of Elevate. So there's a little bit of early game pressure to try and compensate for the Sylvanas push that's undoubtedly going to come through. But the Hercules-Bellona matchup, that is one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, just because Hercules can do pretty well in that matchup against Bellona. Bellona loves to max the bludgeon first of all, but you've got that wind up, which is exactly the same moment Hercules will love for that driving strike every single time they can. I like the choice of Khepri alongside that, just because we talked about late wave clear and pressure. Khepri's another one that is fantastic. Doesn't match to Sylvanas, but it's good enough.
Well, Hindu, with both of these teams locked away, I am definitely excited to see how this match plays out. So here's the casters to take it away.
Thank you very much, Taco and Hindu. We've got one side of the bracket complete. We already know the semifinals on the left side. Now it's time to check out the right. Elevate versus Strictly Business is going to be our first matchup here, Toli. And what jumps out at you when you look at these 2 team compositions?
Honestly, the Cabrakan is what's standing out on the side of Elevate. Strictly Business, they elected to first pick the Zeus, which is not surprising to me, but you're leaving open the Cabrakan, which is kind of a hard counter. It's not the Odin hard counter, but it's a semi-counter. You get half of a ring circle.
Plus, Cabrakan is like the top pick, top ban right now that usually doesn't get through. Strictly Business decide not to take it themselves because Baronic is so potent on this Zeus. It's a signature character, basically. We took a look at Baronic's player video, and most of those highlights were on Zeus, so they knew they didn't want to give it up, but his Vulcan is also very, very proficient.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of damage coming out the side of Elevate, making sure that they have a lot of setup here. The Cabrakan having multiple stuns, the Tremors is going to be very obnoxious to deal with, and not to mention the Khepri on Kenshin is going to be providing a lot of control as well.
Nickwood in that solo lane for Strictly Business. This is going to be the first time in quite a while we've seen him on a warrior. Basically, the entire online portion of the spring split, he was playing nothing but Guardians, the Xingqians, the Terras, the Ymirs, things along that nature. Now on the Hercules, a bit of a change of pace. but not one that I mind totally. Hercules very strong right now in the meta and fits this kind of early mid-game team fighting composition that SB has gone for.
Especially paired up with a Willish for Reminisce. This is the early game strategy that's being deployed by Strictly Business. And I'm not surprised necessarily by how Niquid has turned the tables going from Guardian to the Warriors coming into lane. You always want to be keeping your opposition on their toes, so this is something that he's doing in the solo lane.
Chilvanis is with Mr. Teep in that mid lane 2v2 right now. Dr. L and Baronic want to get the better end of this clear, but Dr. L cannot afford to sit there and use the tremors, so it's actually going to be Teep and Chilvanis getting the edge there. On the right-hand side, it's Kenshin with his solo laner, just trying to get Bologna a little bit of safety in this lane early on.
Rising Dawn does a lot of wave clear as well as preventing the damage from your opposition, so looking for the clear, alleviating a little bit of pressure from the Bologna. You don't necessarily want to get too close to Reminisce on this Awilish.
Keji just going to get those little minions off the purple buff while Elevate steals away his red. So slight advantage right now for Elevate, but it's going to be SB who get back to this mid wave first. Elevate could choose to do these left side mid harpies. Looks like that's exactly what they're doing. They may lose a little bit to this tower, but the clear speed from the Cabrakan is enough to make sure that they secure themselves that mid farm easily.
Elevate doing a great job thus far, getting the first 2 buffs of the game, getting the neutral camp left side mid harpies. Now granted, Strictly Business is going to get these oracles to grant them a little bit of vision, which isn't a bad thing when you're dealing with such an aggressive jungler.
SB went to that right-hand side, and I thought it cleaned up those fire elementals, but it looks like they left the big one there, Toli. Didn't get a chance to clean that out. So this is a huge win for Elevate. Not only did they get that big minion of the fire creeps, which is the most valuable one, but they also steal away the enemy red buff. Elevate, despite having the composition that should come up a little bit later, take the advantage early on.
It's all about whatever experience you can min-max at the beginning of the game. The question is who's going to get level 5 first, and if you're going to be in a position to make a play off of it. Looking on the side of Elevate, there could be a lot of plays. Delny doing a good job turning around, preventing that knockup from Reminisce.
Like the idea there from Niquid to step up and try and secure an easy first blood in that solo lane, but Delny a little bit too veteran for that, I suppose, knows exactly what's coming. Delny, remember, did come to land with Elevate last season. He was playing under Mr. McWaffles at the time and was with Reminisce. Reminisce was the jungler on that Elevate team who came to land this time facing off against one another. But looking across the board for Strictly Business, Reminisce, the only one with LAN experience here. How difficult is that to have 4 members who have never played a LAN before, Toli?
It's very difficult. If you're the only one that has to rally the rest of your teammates to make sure that they don't have any LAN jitters, to be on the same page after picks and bans, you have to create a strategy and execute it accordingly. And thus far, Reminisce has been sitting in the solo lane trying to synergize off of Niquid's pull, still waiting around the corner.
I don't know if Delny knows he's here. There's the pull from Niquid and the push directly into the knockup from Reminisce. The Feather Step going to combine, and Niquid going to be able to clean up that first blood in the solo lane.
The patience from Reminisce not using the ultimate, recognizing that Bologna's only level 4, doesn't have the Eagles rally available for the escape. Saving onto the ultimate now allows Reminisce to maybe even look for a second gank in that solo lane.
Really good presence of mind there. Reminisce, like I mentioned, did come to LAN last season, but didn't really have a great performance. Looked to have a couple LAN nerves maybe the second time around. He'll be able to shake those demons. This is one of the matchups, Toli, that I'm really looking forward to, is Michael Checo versus Keji, a couple guys who are new to the SPL. The NA Hunter pool continues to get better and better. Both these guys rookies this split, but have that late game carry potential. Excited to see who gets the better end of this one.
And Michael Checo is one of these players in the console scene that everybody looks up to. They always troll him a little bit too, making names in the teams during relegations. But either way, there's a lot of respect on the side of this player because even Strictly Business was trying to ban him out.
With that hell, exactly. They mentioned it on the desk. That hell ban is for the Hunter. Michael Checo known for his interesting strats. Some may say cheese. Some may say interesting. I went with interesting this time around.
It's definitely worth experimenting, and whenever you run a mage in that dual lane position, you keep your opponents guessing.
Baronic pulled in and knocked up. The Scarab's Blessing on top of him, and Kenshin gonna be able to save his life until the detonate comes through from Mr. Teep. Those detonate stacks stay on you through the revive. Great patience once more by Strictly Business. able to secure their second kill.
And the snipe's not even necessary from Keji, but the ultimate and the spray from Michael Checo securing those oracles, just making sure that he gets a little bit of gold back in his pocket.
Heads up play there by Michael Checo, one that many rookies may not make, but knowing that his ultimate is worth that farm at this stage in the game.
Trying to min-max anytime he can. He recognizes there's going to be no team fight because all the ultimates from Strictly Business was committed. Wrath of Terror, even the Rama snipe after the Zeus ultimate, there's no pressure that's going to be dealt in his lane. So now he's going to be able to use the cooldown of his own ultimate, basically assessing when the ultimates of the Strictly Business will be available.
Now, if you're Kenshin in this matchup, Toli, and you just watch your mid laner fall after reviving him, normally Khepris aren't leveling that Scarab's Blessing at every chance they get. That's an ability that they kind of hold on until they have to level it up. In this matchup, are you putting points in that to get your revives up healthier, so to maybe get them out of range of that Zeus detonate damage?
Well, that's a lot of damage on the Zeus. So honestly, if I'm playing the Khepri for Kenshin, I'm definitely considering it here, because after Rising Dawn, it's worth committing at that point. Even able to save a skill point at level 8, making sure that you max out your Rising Dawn and put a second point into that Scarab's Blessing. Now, having increased crowd control wouldn't be a bad idea for Kenshin, but making sure whoever you revive is worth way more.
Really, Khepri's one of those characters I think has some of the more interesting choices in terms of where they choose to level their abilities. Rising Dawn, the obvious one to max, as Delny's forced to use that Eagle's Rally to get away. Nikwid just controlling him so far in this solo lane. But Khepri gets increased CC on both his 1 and his 3 as he levels it. You have to make a choice. Are you going to make sure you're leveling that Abduct? It's actually pretty good burst damage as well, able to control them for longer from close up, or that Solar Flare from a distance, trying to increase that root duration.
It depends how aggressive you want to be, or do you want to set up from that distance like you were mentioning before. And that's the battle that a lot of supports have to basically fight internally as a Khepri support. But either way, so far, looking at the score, 2-0 for Strictly Business, still not too far out of reach for Elevate. They're only down about 1,100 gold.
1,100 gold right at the 7-minute mark, though, is something that is worth mentioning. Not one of those, 200-300 gold leads. But you're right, Elevate still in a decent spot. And remember, we talked about it a lot. Strictly Business's composition is designed to get ahead at this stage in the game, and they're doing just that this time around at least. Sitting up about 1,200 experience as well, usually a little bit more impactful at this stage of the game than that gold lead.
Trying to get to level 12 first will be the deciding factor of who's going to get that second relic and who's going to be able to get that objective around that gold fury. Neither team kind of flirting with the idea just yet. Instead, electing to go for those left side mid harpies, making sure that the oracles are taken on cooldown, and then from there, controlling the vision. Look at Elevate's warding around the gold, even mid lane.
And now they're really heavily contesting those oracles as well to make sure that they have uncontestable vision around that gold fury. And with this composition that Strictly Business has, you can understand why Reminisce on this Awilish can pop that Gravity Surge for the increased attack speed and power, really burn Gold Fury down pretty quickly. Mr. Teep's Lightning Storm, excellent at burning objectives quickly, so heads up play here by Elevate.
Despite Strictly Business having all this vision around the Gold Fury, I'm sorry, actually they have all the vision on the Fire Giant side, afraid of any ganks, but look at this Gold Fury attempt from Elevate into the skies. Keji trying to steal it away, but a great reset.
Trying to get a little bit of damage into the opposition. He does just that, but Elevate are going to be able to walk away by baiting out that ultimate from Keji. Not so bad, though, for Strictly Business. He still has those purification beads, but I think Dr. L is going to be the one to say, okay, I'm heading to that left-hand side. Beads doesn't save you from a Cabrakan wall.
Especially when you have oldest vision around Gold Fury, as long as you can deny it from your opposition, you can safely gank that Hunter. Without that defensive cooldown of the ultimate, only having the purification beads, now you don't have that 6-second window where you can just stay in the air when you know you're going to die, but you could allow the rest of your teammates to rotate and look for the cleanup.
Checo is up a level as well right now and should be sitting on a decent amount of gold, ready to back and almost finish off that Transcendence at this stage. Keji instead going for a little bit more boxing-oriented build, the Ichaival giving him some increased attack speed, power, and penetration, but not nearly as much power as the Transcendence we'll probably see from Checo.
Whenever we look at two different Hunter styles between attack-based versus ability-based, one goes for the lifesteal, one goes for the Transcendence here, but Keji on the ROM going for more of attack speed, despite already having that steroid available in his second ability, trying to really outbox the opponent on Checo. But the thing is, it's Dr. L playing the Cabrakan. Normally you go for an early Ichabod when it's an aggressive physical jungler, not a magical one.
Interesting decision there from Delny to teleport into the left harpies there right after doing his blue buff. Now he's helping split that purple experience despite knowing that Delny's here. It's strictly business, pulling this Gold Fury down below 75%. There's the lock-in from Dr. L, the Petrify right on top of Nickwood. Huge knock-up though coming out of Chovanes. Dr. L's gonna fall. Ketchin forced to try and get away. Checo cleans up Nickwood though.
The snipes coming from Ketchin. He's gonna pop the bubble from Ketchin. The Vulcan ultimate from a distance.
Ooh.
Not on the mark. Mr. Teep and Keji doing the best 1-2 split impersonation. Baronic almost taking out Chovanes, but pulling him back into the danger zone. Chovanes taken out. That's 2 for 1.
And Baronic is still so healthy that he can start up this Gold Fury totally. Checo doesn't have any lifesteal and Keji's still hanging around, but doesn't have that ultimate. Now decides just gonna farm up his red buff instead. Elevate, walk away with the team fight and the Gold Fury. Gold lead now right about even at 10.5 minutes.
Too ambitious with Strictly Business, trying to go for that Gold Fury without any sort of clear-cut advantage in a 5v5 scenario, despite being up almost 2,000 gold, almost 2,000 experience. It's not that big of a lead to the point where you could just straight up do this objective in front of your opponent's face.
That was the first real engagement that Dr. L has been a part of, and it goes handily in Elevate's favor. They do lose a couple members there in that engagement, but they end up on top at the end, getting the Gold Fury. Dr. L doesn't seem to be the type of jungler who wants to force the pressure around the map. He's just kind of waiting until the opportunity falls into his lap and taking advantage then.
Trying to max out his second ability along with his first. That's the burst damage coming from Cabrakan. Already having the pen boots available, working on that Void Stone to survive a little bit more against Mr. T, because whenever you use your Cabrakan ultimate over the Zeus player, the counter action is going to be that Zeus ultimate, the chain lightning. So as long as you can survive the counter burst, that's the goal for Dr. L.
And he has that passive that makes him take less damage, going to help him out in that respect, and that Mark of the Vanguard. So has a lot of options in terms of taking a little bit less damage. Love the Voidstone pickup. As you mentioned, one of those hybrid items that synergizes so well with the Guardian, who's going to be right in the front line. Portal Demon started up here by Strictly Business. Nickwood tries to zone away Delny as the Lightning Storm is dropped, and Delny going to have to try and get away after the boulder from Nickwood helps secure the Portal Demon in favor of SB. Delny, instead of just turning around, instead uses ultimate to get away from that knockup.
Could be the land jitters that we were talking about before. Not really able to find the safety. He was doing a good job in soloing when he was preventing the knockup around level 3 or 4, but that time, not necessarily needed was the Eagles rally, because from that distance on, you have enough time to be able to turn your character model.
So we've seen a lot of this build that Delny looks like he's going for here, Toli. It's specifically from Bologna. The boots into the Mark of the Vanguard into a mystical mail. Why is this build so prevalent right now? What does it do well and what does it not excel at?
It depends on what you want to do in team fights. And if you're going to have the mystical mail, you're basically committing yourself towards the backline. But you're also going to have the magical damage per tick, which is going to help out with the penetration from the Void Stone coming out of Dr. L. But Delny caught in a 1v3 without his ultimate.
Doesn't have it, remember. There's the push in from Nickwood. Delny, there's the feather step. There he goes. Reminisced with the easy kill on that right-hand side as all 5 members of SB come through that portal and knock down that solo tower. 500 gold goes the way of the blue team. Nickwood, he's going to teleport onto the left side to stop the push coming in from Michael Checo, but he knew that was coming and immediately started rotating towards mid.
It's going to be a 4-on-3 around the duel lane, but Dr. L is getting zoned away from Chilvan. Checo, though, making the rotation from duo to hunter to min-max, get another wave under his belt, and then could look to rotate in this team fight.
Chilvan locked in by Dr. L. The damage isn't good enough, though, still sitting about 50% HP. Fire Giant gets pulled by the tremors coming out of Dr. L. Big damage out of Teep's ultimate, but not enough to really knock anyone so low enough to allow Keji to find the snipes from a distance.
Delny teleports back in. Could be a 5-on-5, but instead electing to go back into the soul lane to get that important farm. Down about 2 levels against Nickwood. Doesn't have a second relic, doesn't have that mystical mail, and that's going to be an important factor that Strictly Business could look at and look to go for an engagement.
Yeah, this is the tough part about this build, Toli, is that you sit on Steel Mail for what feels like forever, because mystical mail is so expensive in terms of the physical protection items. It's been sitting on that second item for quite some time, and Delny really hasn't been able to have too much of an impact on this game quite yet, but you can't say the same about his lane opponent. Nickwood, 1-1-2, top of the player damage charts, has been a big factor so far in Strictly Business's slight lead.
despite the slow early start from Delny, he's still going to be making an impact in these team fights. All it's going to take is one Scourge against Keji once he pops that steroid, and there goes about 33% of his DPS. And that's going to be an important factor for the rest of Elevate to be safe in that front line. Without the ROM damage that Delny's preventing, they could continue the pressure.
Do you like this build coming out of Keji, chin size right after that Ichaival? You have a little bit of pen in terms of that Ichaival, but I don't know, is this enough damage to punch through that Mystical Mail Mark of the Vanguard combination from Delny?
I mean, it's going to basically eliminate some of the health options, right? If you're going to be building health, you go for the chin size. That's a clear-cut advantage, especially considering Kenshin went for the Gauntlet of Thebes. If you're not going to be committing to the backline, you want to be able to melt those tanks. And as long as you can position yourself in such a way that you don't need lifesteal, as well as relying on Sylvanas Wisps to heal you up, it's not the worst build in the world from Keji.
Dr. L knocked up, but not pulled in by Reminisced. 2-level lead for the Strictly Business jungler over Dr. L, who's still trying to really find his footing in the jungle. Elevate has gone through a couple different roster role swaps, basically. Baronic was jungle for a little bit. Dr. L has found his home there, at least for the time being, as the Gold Fury is the focus right now for Elevate. Kenshin in that front line gets pulled back in by Sylvanas. Dr. L already under half HP, but Delny goes with the Eagles rally into 3, immediately gets one set of purification beads out from Mr. T.
Dr. L, though, getting poked out by Keji on the left-hand side. Some disconnect between the rest of Elevate as Delny dove in. Now it's Nickwood diving into that backline. Pops the Thorns, getting pulled back in, though. It's going to be Dr. L.
There's the push. There's the damage as well. Scarab's Blessing's good from Kenshin, as is Baronic's ultimate, but up into the sky goes Keji. Snipes the Delny's the focus, not the low-health Kabrakan. Double meditation popped by Elevate, now looking to re-engage. Nickwood very low, but does have that teleport up within the next 5 seconds.
Without the ultimate from Mr. T, nothing to fear from Elevate. Starting the goal here, right about half health. Dr. L leading the charge, gets off an ultimate, gets stunned, and the pull. Michael Checo still looking to do some damage. Delny on the bottom-hand side doing a lot of damage, and the rest of their team is leaving them high and dry.
Elevate gets the Gold Fury. Reminisce tries to jump away. Dr. L very low with that detonate, not going to be able to clean him up. Somehow, everybody escapes with their lives, but Elevate secure their second Gold Fury of the game, putting them up slightly in gold, despite still being behind in kills.
Not having the kill counter, but having the more important kill counter on the form of the Gold Fury, staying relevant in the game. Now having a 1,000 gold lead for themselves, still at the 17-minute mark, so that's pretty much negligible. What you're really looking at is the experience difference here, and more importantly, at the side lane hunters. Michael Checo with a 2-level lead over his opposition, Keji, still trying to get to that level 17 marker. And once a Medusa hits level 20 and has that kind of mobility with the Fatalis, you're going to be having a world of pain.
Yeah, Michael Checo's done a great job so far of farming 2-0 and 0 for the Hunter. 2 levels up on Keji, like you mentioned. And again, different styles of builds. Now the Fatalis is the focus for Keji. And it looks like it might be chin size for here for Michael Checo, though could also be Executioner in this stage. Either way, that slippery Medusa is going to be tough to lock down. And Petrify is just such a big team fighting ultimate. I think that's really the thing that pushed Medusa from a pretty good hunter that doesn't see a lot of pro level play to one of the top picks and top bans in the hunter pool, is how much damage that ultimate does now, even if you aren't looking at her.
And it's not necessarily the damage, it's what else it can bring to the table. The stun is also really good, and the fact that it basically forces you to turn around, that's going to be in hands you're not committing into the teamfight abilities that you're not using, so you're basically revolving around playing around this Medusa ultimate, so that buys you about half a second for the rest of your frontliners to get in a position to really dive that backline.
And even when you turn around, you're still slowed for a while as well. So the control and damage, certainly one of the reasons why Medusa is so highly contested in that hunter role. A couple abilities thrown out here onto the Portal Demon. Dr. L, who's tanking it up, but he's only level 12. In fact, he's the lowest level in the game, tied with Sylvanas, but there's the blink stun onto Reminisce. The control is good, but not enough damage onto the jungler. A big knock up there from Sylvanas, and Nickwood stuns the enemies into the Lightning Storm, but Mr. Teep has been kept busy by Delny on the backside. Nickwood locked in by Dr. L. There's the Petrify coming out of Checo, and big damage so far. There's the Feather Step out of Reminisce, who has to beads away that Abduct.
Everybody's surviving out of Strictly Business. The snipes from Keji, missing the first, second off the mark as well. Meatball not going to connect, and just like that, everybody's surviving. But Sylvanas is available for Chillvanas. Having the sustain could look to re-engage here.
Oh, there's the Wisps, a little bit of extra protections, but this Bludgeon is going to do a lot of damage. Delny cleans up Chillvanas. Portal Demon goes the way of Team Elevate as Delny continues to make life difficult for Mr. Teep. And again, only one person falls for SB.
And just like that, despite the slow start from Delny, making a play with that Bludgeon. The more targets you hit with the wind-up from the Bludgeon, the more damage the second hit is going to do. And Chillvanas underestimating that damage, despite having the Mark of the Vanguard, the Reinforced Greaves, and the health that Gauntlet of Thieves provides you.
Now Elevate just backs and comes through the portal, all healthy, all healed up, all with their items that they got from that last team fight, and knocked down that 500 gold tower in the mid lane. Now looking at the red buff of SB. Got to worry about this control coming out of Dr. L. That's what set everything up the first time around in that last team fight, but the Boulder not going to be enough to steal away the red buff from Elevate, who get it for themselves, and hand it over to Checo, who's now level 18 already.
Having a little bit of cooldown reduction for Nickwood in the Breast of Plate of Valor, but that's going to allow this engagement.
Chillvanas with the ultimate, but the Lightning Storm this time isn't nearly as good for Teep. Chillvanas is locked in and knocked down. Baronic with the long-range ultimate gets credit for the kill. Elevate evens the kill total at 4-4, but the gold lead, that's not even. 3,000 gold in the lead for Elevate.
Great plays all across the board. Delny and Dr. L playing so well in the front line, and Baronic throwing out those long-distance artillery shots, making his impact now known in this later stage of the game. And Chillvanas, this is one of these mobile Guardians that you can really punish here if you're looking at Elevate.
Yeah, strictly business. Their Guardian, Chillvanas, just keeps walking up to the opposition and trying to find these ultimates. The first few were pretty solid, but now that Checo has the items, now that Baronic has some items, you just can't sit there and face tank a level 18, level 19 Medusa. Can't handle a Vulcan that's got 3 items complete now with some serious penetration in that build between the Dynasty Plate Helm and the Divine Ruin. It looks like Baronic's not done with the pen. He's going for even more, likely to be an Obsidian Shard here.
And the pen on the physical side as well. Michael Checo with that Executioner synergizes a little bit of the in-hands coming from Delny. So once that Sylvanas gets locked into the wall from the Cabrakan, an easy pick. And then without that Guardian on the side of Strictly Business, they don't have the sustain to keep running through these team fights that would be expected to last as long as they would like. And Elevate, they're basically going to be a bursty all-in composition. It's been working out for them.
Dr. L looping around here, looking for something in that mid lane, but Nickwood, the first one in, not too worried about, even though he's a little bit behind now, sitting at level 16, still feeling pretty confident in that tanky Hercules. I don't think I've ever said the sentence before, Toli, but I think Baronic has too much penetration. I don't think I've ever seen that before. With the Void Stone coming out of Dr. L as well, it might be a little overkill, but it's working out for him thus far, so you can't really complain. Gold Fury down around 50% HP. Nickwood's in the middle of 4 members in his control. There's the Abduct. Big pull there, though. Here comes the Vulcan ultimate, but it's Aegis out by 2 members of SB. The Boulder doesn't do a whole lot of help there for Nickwood, and it's everyone funneled into a tiny little corner. Checo finds Nickwood. Delny finds Mr. Teep. Now Keji's up in the sky.
But finding 2, couldn't find the third, but getting pulled back into it is Chillvanas. He's going to be the third victim. Delny wants to dive this so badly, but have to be careful, though, because Michael Checo's taking a lot of damage in the backline. Sure, you can grab one Hunter, but you don't want to lose your Hunter that's a higher level than the opponent.
Checo low enough, but still healthy enough to be on this Gold Fury. Somehow gets aggro there because Dr. L peels off of it, but is able to dash out in time. Elevate, get Gold Fury number 3. 3 kills there as well. 7-4 now in kills. We're 23 minutes in, and Elevate is starting to separate themselves from SB.
What used to be about a 2,000 gold deficit now becomes a very hefty 6,000 gold lead for Elevate, looking to snowball this game out of proportion. Strictly Business, they don't really have any answers and responses, because not only was Nickwood dying in the front line, but it was Mr. Teep that was caught under that Cabrakan ultimate to start things off. And without the buffer from Hercules or the long-range damage from your Zeus, you're just not going to win that team fight.
And no Heartward Amulet either from either Chillvanas or Nickwood to give some magical protection to the carries and to themselves, because they need it right now. Between Baronic and Dr. L, quite a bit of magical damage coming out of the side of Elevate. But Checo's on top, number 1 in terms of damage, 3, 0, and 2. He has hit level 20 and is now going for some crit, something that we haven't seen a whole lot of as of late. Do you like it in this scenario?
I mean, it depends on how he's going to transition it, because sometimes you build crit right off the bat, or like your 5th item, you don't necessarily get your 2nd crit, like in terms of Deathbringer. You can go for Wind Demon potentially, but it looks like it might be the Rage or the Deathbringer here coming out of Michael Checo, electing not to go for that Wind Demon. Still has the mobility that he needs between the passive of Medusa and the Fatalis. Considering just how much attack speed he has and the damage, I like the crit option.
There's the Abduct onto Nikwid. Kenshin still in that front line as the Portal Demon focused down by Elevate. There's the boulder coming out of Nikwid, but it doesn't secure the Portal Demon. Elevate gets yet another objective. SB has taken some of these team fights at least early on, but the objectives have been all Elevate so far.
And every single objective recently, at least, Nikwid has been throwing out this boulder and not connecting to steal it around that Portal Demon, around the red buff. And this is allowing Elevate to force a team fight without having that important boulder that can easily ricochet off of that Cabrakan ultimate.
And again, Elevate using this portal to their advantage. They take the team fight, they back, they come popping right out, ready to go once more. Only one Tier 1 tower left remaining that defends SB's base. That seems to be the focus for Elevate. 4 members here, and as Checo comes through that portal, make that 5. Deathbringer was the call for the Hunter. So as long as he rolls well, could see Reminisce, Teep, and Keji really pop from the damage coming out of Checo, especially Mr. Teep, who's only level 14 right now.
Not able to really get the better end of things here is the Zeus player out of mid, despite having it first picked for Strictly Business, but it is going to be the Medusa doing a lot of work thus far. Nikwid trying to lead the charge, finds a pull onto Kenshin. Eagles rally though in the back.
Right onto Keji. It's Downey and a Dr. L keeping the Hunter busy, and they're going to bring him down to 1 HP, make that 0. Dr. L with the kill. The Baronic ultimate over the top is going to knock down Chilvannis. A lot of damage there. Dr. L finds 2. Nikwid plucked back in. Baronic's on a killing spree himself. Only Reminisce still alive, and he's got to watch as his Tier 2 tower falls easily to all 5 members of Elevate.
If you looked at the player cams during that teamfight, Kenshin was just yelling at the top of his lungs into victory. A huge ultimate from Michael Checo that eliminated Mr. Teep, followed up by Baronic, and Elevate has been doing just a great job whenever these 5-in-5 encounters in their favor.
Love the idea to just knock down that right side Phoenix with the opportunity, because Elevate, they still have all 5 members totally, and they're all pretty healthy still. Fire Giant should be an easy secure here if they want it.
With the level 20 Medusa having Deathbringer, certainly looks like it. You have the turret from the level 18 Vulcan, a great vision from the Elevate to allow them the safety net of doing the Fire Giant. Not to mention, Dr. L is also in the mid lane, farming it up and providing that mobile ward for themselves.
So what's gone wrong here for Strictly Business? It looked like this game was pretty close, so SB was right into it, and then basically every team fight for the last 10 to 12 minutes has gone in Elevate's favor.
It seemed like that first Gold Fury attempt here by Strictly Business, when they tried to do it 5-on-5 without any sort of real advantage, was the beginning of the end. All of these team fights, they kept pushing themselves a little bit too far forward, getting punished by Dr. L's zone control between the wall and the Tremors, and then once Delny got to that level 12 mark, got his Meditate with the Mystical Mail, he just consistently dove that backline, making everyone's life a living hell on Strictly Business.
Yeah, Delny, if you would have told me that Delny at like the 12-minute mark, someone tapped him on the shoulder and said, all right, bro, give me the controller, I'm going to take over from here, and it was like, you know, Omega, I would have believed you. He looks like a completely different player since the mid-game. The early game, he was getting crushed in that lane. And sometimes you have the losing lane matchup, and that's fine, and that happens. But it was the confidence level just didn't seem to be there. But now, I mean, he is consistently the first one in, or in that last scenario where Kenshin gets plucked, it's Delny who comes in and distracts all of SB from focusing down his support.
You know, sometimes there's multiple games within one game. You know, you have the laning phase, which is technically one game. Getting ganked by Reminisce in the early phases makes Delny get behind against Nikwid, but once you get level 12, you get that second relic online, the Gold Furies fights start happening. That first game that you were playing is completely gone. You're on to the next one, and this is what Delny has been excelling at.
Reminisce sitting at 1-0-2, had that great early game in that solo lane, as you mentioned, but really hasn't been anywhere since that point. Is there anything that he could have done differently in this game, or is it just one of those, well, we passed 20 minutes and you're a Willish, so you just kind of watch as the rest of the team fight goes on?
Maybe just too much pressure in that solo lane. Forcing out the ultimates from Delny was nice, between Liquid and Reminisce, but there was left unchecked the Medusa on Michael Checo. Having this level 20 Medusa already like maybe 5 minutes ago was when Elevate was really starting to group up and taking advantage of the Hunter differential. So I would have liked to see more pressure from the jungler Reminisce onto that Medusa Hunter.
Left side tier 2 goes down. Elevate only has one more tower to worry about. 2 Phoenixes still left standing for SB, but they've got a tall mountain to climb. Even if they win a couple team fights totally, they've only knocked down 1 tower for Elevate, who are now looking to siege down this middle lane. 1,700 gold in the lead for the red squad.
17,000 indeed is going to be a big one for Strictly Business. And this is not like the last set, Sword Gaming versus Rival, where there was a lot of back and forth action. Let's look and listen to Elevate as they try and end the game.
Can we get some on the back? Okay. Phoenix. Pull. Get ready. Let's fucking go! Let's go! You guys Let's fucking go! Let's go, Tango! Why you guys so quiet now?
You hear